from the world's playground. This is Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 95.5.
The man is never late. I got to tell you, I'm Hurley. I always say, always Hurley, never late. He's Murphy, never late. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome back to our program the Honorable Phil Murphy, Governor of New Jersey. Governor, welcome, sir.
Nice to be back with you, Harry. How are you doing, all right?
I'm doing great, and this was really not on the top of my list, but obviously it's breaking as we talk, so let's just get it out there and over. This whole Attila's Gym thing in Belmar, what are your thoughts? They're just going to keep opening every day, and obviously it's escalating, and now the Board of Health, paper towels in the toilet, all kinds of stuff. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I won't, just because this is an unfolding matter, I won't comment, Harry, if it's okay, on the specifics of that particular facility, that particular business. Just make a couple of general points that are important. We've taken a whole lot of steps already to begin to open the state up, I think, responsibly. You know, we opened county and state parks a few weeks ago. We've got non-essential construction, elective surgery, non-essential retail curbside. This weekend, beaches on the shore, which is a big one. The inside stuff is harder, and folks have to understand that the virus is still out there. We're still hospitalizing, a couple of hundred folks or more a day, and the indoors, lack of ventilation, close proximity, sedentary. If any of those words describe something, we'll get there. So we're going to get there on gyms. We'll get there on restaurants. Assuming we keep making progress, we'll get there, but we're just not there yet.
So it doesn't sound redundant. I want to highlight, obviously, Memorial Day weekend. Tomorrow it begins. In your estimation, in terms of what's open versus what you see coming back next, your thoughts, Governor?
Yeah, we're going to make some news today, Harry. I at our press conference, as well as tomorrow, we'll be doing another heavy dose of outdoor stuff. So stuff that's outside is a lot easier for us to deal with. We're not doing everything today, but we're going to take a whole bunch more steps in the next couple of days. I think things that we're not doing yet, for the most part, and I'm not going to say everything, but for the most part, it's a matter of weeks. So this is a matter of weeks, not months. And importantly, again, the predicate here is with the fatalities. It's hard to believe we've lost 10,747 precious lives, which is just takes your breath away. But the other predictive data is all going in the right direction. The only caveat, Harry, is that continues to need to be the case. We need to continue to see good data, and with the good data we'll keep opening up.
Let me share an area where I've had your back, Governor, and I knew what you were doing when you extended your executive order, because that you had allowed it to expire. You extended it. I reminded people that the extension of that didn't mean that everything stays closed for the length of time that you extended it, because I reminded folks that in the first executive order, you opened certain things while it was going on. So that was not a lot of people just... The knee-jerk reaction was, oh, my God, I'm shut in completely and nothing's going to change for 30 more days. That was never the case, and I felt confident taking your side on that one.
Yeah, Harry, you got it as usual. You got it exactly right. You said it better than I could. This isn't a life sentence. This isn't oh my God, we're chained in for another 30 days. This is something that needs, frankly, it's more of honestly a clerical issue. You need to re-up the health emergency or declaration every 30 days, or it expires on its own. And so we just did that because that allows us to continue to do a lot of the things we're doing. But if we can open something up and we don't think it's jumping the gun, we're going to continue to open things up.
We are visiting with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, 19 minutes past the hour. Governor Murphy, you can make me a hero today. I'm a former casino executive. You know where I'm going. Every casino president in Atlantic City and probably in other jurisdictions, I know for a fact, are listening right now to our interview in real time. They desperately want the casinos open. I've talked to the highest level people. They have met with the best infectious disease people that you can ever imagine. They're the most regulated industry probably in the country, if not certainly in our state, but probably in the country. They desperately need to open, and they need 2 weeks of ramp up. They need 2 weeks advance notice so that they can get ready to open. You can make me a hero, Governor Murphy. Can you declare that the casinos will be opening in the very near future, understanding that it would have to be done with social distancing and disinfection. Please make me a hero.
I love you, and I would love nothing more than to do that. But I would also, I can't say something that would be irresponsible if I don't feel like I've got the conviction that I need to say it. And you know this because you've been in the business. First of all, it's a huge game changer in our economy, and it's a huge game changer in the lives of literally tens of thousands of people out there, either folks who have lost their jobs or family members, neighbors, the mom and pop, even takeout places that aren't getting the business that they would have been getting. So I would love nothing more, not only to make you a hero, but to say we're ready to go. We're just not there yet. Will we get there? Yes. It's got attributes that are challenging, and you know this, but it's indoors. You can't open the windows. It's largely sedentary, close proximity. That means that those elements make it a hard nut to crack as it relates to this virus.
Governor, how tough is your executive decision making play into the fact that at some point, to save the patient, we kill the state, we kill the industry? There comes a point in time, and I happen to know this as a fact, that if we don't act, there will be casinos that they'll go under, they'll founder.
Well, we've already seen what that looks like, too, Harry, coming out of the Great Recession. And we were Atlantic City, and I don't need to say this to anybody who lives the reality because they know it. It's their lives. Atlantic City, we had finally just basically gotten back over the past year or two on its feet. And so we know that took in itself 8 to 10 years. So the consequences are huge. Look at not just job loss, but home foreclosures that came out of the Great Recession. Here's the problem, though, is if we transpose the steps. So we always say public health creates economic health, which guides us in this crisis. If we jump the gun or we transpose those steps, my fear is that we have not only reignited our public health crisis, but that the economic hole will be ultimately even deeper. So I'm not going to wait a day longer. I promise you, anyone who's listening out there, we're not just waiting willy-nilly on this. We want to get things going as fast as we can, but we've got to do it responsibly so that we don't end up with an even bigger problem.
Governor Murphy, fair comment. I beg your indulgence for one other follow-up on this, and then we'll go to some other ground.
Please.
The Atlantic City casinos, are you willing to say that they are weeks and not a month or months away from coming back online?
I don't want to marry myself. I hope it's that, Harry. I hope it's that. I'll leave it at that. It's something that we're taking extremely seriously. Again, indoor stuff when you can't open the windows is really hard, and I can't. And I'm not just this is relying on medical data, science, health facts. It's just the virus is incredible. It ravages those sorts of spaces. So, listen. Here's one. There's several pieces of good news, but here's something that you haven't asked about, but which is a big potential game changer, even compared to the last time I was on with you. The testing reality in our state, the contact tracing reality in our state is light years different than it was, and it will be light years different than, again, 6-8 weeks from now, meaning we're now testing, we've got the capacity to test at least 20,000 people a day. That number will continue to go up. We contact trace. What's that mean? If we find out that you or I test positive, we've immediately built an army with technology to figure out who you or I were in contact with so we can quickly isolate the infection and not have it running rampant in the community. That reality will make a big difference in our confidence on steps like casinos, and that's a big asset we didn't have even last time I was on the phone with you.
Thank you for that update, Governor Murphy. Governor Murphy, with respect, I guess, from the frying pan into the fire, the senior living home scenario and the fact that half of our deaths are in the senior living homes. And, of course, people have been critical because COVID-19 people put in there and then more people got it and also got sick and some died. What are your thoughts about that?
Listen, it's the overall thought is it's the tragedy within the tragedy, and it's not just New Jersey, it's the country, but it certainly is New Jersey. And Harry, when you roll the clock back First of all, we talk about heroic healthcare workers, and I think people, their default thought is that means folks in hospitals, which it does. It also means the folks who are going into long-term care facilities every day. They've been extraordinary. Here's what happened early on. Some of those folks had the virus and they were asymptomatic and didn't know they had it. They went into, again, a closed environment, older folks, many of them with what they call comorbidities, in other words, other underlying health issues. And this is like dry wood in a forest fire. And so it's just run rampant through long-term care facilities in New Jersey and around the country. So we were not only not prepared as a nation in terms of the protective equipment and the ventilators and the testing and all the stuff I just talked about, but we also didn't sit in our hands. So we've thrown everything we can at this. I think there's a misconception, although this is an industry, Harry, with operators who I will be charitable and say have had an extremely uneven performance. I would not say that about our hospital systems. Our hospital systems, for the most part, have been A+. That doesn't mean they've been perfect, but they've been extraordinary. That is not the case in long-term care. There's an incredible unevenness in terms of the actual operation of facilities. So when patients were sent in, when the commissioner of health said you should take folks in, that was under very strict circumstances. Number one, you had to cohort. What's that mean? You had to separate folks, literally into different wings, different parts of your operation, in some cases different buildings. You had to have the proper personal protective equipment and attest to that, and the proper protocols, et cetera. In some cases, that turned out to be true. In other cases, unfortunately and sadly, it didn't. And so we've thrown everything from the National Guard. The Attorney General's doing an investigation on some of these places. We've got an outside national recognized team that's come in for about the past month to help us. There have been 4,000-something blessed souls lost. There's probably several 100,000 people still associated with long-term care, either residents or staff, and we're working 24/7 to keep as many of them alive as possible as we speak.
Governor Murphy, what can you say? Because I know this will be very helpful, and I'm sure they're all listening as well. Meet AC, yep, which you know is our Convention and Visitors Bureau. Obviously, the convention center is part hospital right now. When do you see that not being necessary? And then we know there's a period of time to disinfect and to get it back so that then Meet AC can sell Atlantic City again. What can you do to give them an update? Yeah,
so Harry, you asked the best question. So we have something called the Road to Recovery, and there are 6 steps on it. I'll skip the first 5. 4 of them are health-related. The 6th one is resiliency. What does that mean? Well, it means addressing the awful inequities that this virus has exposed, particularly across racial lines. I'm going to put that aside for a moment. Resiliency means, as a nation, and by definition, therefore, New Jersey entered this pandemic without remotely the assets that we needed at our disposal. So that includes bed capacity, importantly to your question, PPE, ventilators, medicines, the relief pitchers in healthcare, the folks who have signed up to volunteer to come in and help. We're committed to not seeing this movie twice. In other words, if this comes back, and Harry, if we do everything perfectly, folks listening should realize it may well come back. No matter how good a job we do, we want to be more prepared than we were last time. So my specific answer on Atlantic City, without giving you a date, is the following. Look up at the example that Secaucus we've seen at the Meadowlands Exposition Center. We closed that up about 10 days ago, and we've put those beds into and the infrastructure associated with it basically into reserve, into our own, if you will, stockpile. The same thing will happen in Atlantic City. I can't give you a date, but that's the path that will travel. The virus did migrate. I want to make sure I said this on the last time we were together. It migrated from the greater New York part of New Jersey into the central, into the south. And while there are fewer per capita residents in the south, we also have lesser hospital and healthcare infrastructure. So we're not going to jump the gun on Atlantic City. We want to make sure we get that timing right to make sure we're not in need of those beds.
Governor Murphy, so I respect our time. Do you have time for one more question, or do you need to jump?
Absolutely, Harry.
Thank you, sir. Governor Phil Murphy continues, and we're on bonus time now, overtime. I want to commend you. I said it the other day in an interview that I did with the Atlantic City Board of Education president. I commended you. You made the absolute right decision to shut the schools down and continue remote learning for the school year. There was just nothing to be gained. Complexities with transportation, students' proximity, and imagine little ones with masks, all kinds of things for a month or something. So it was the right call. However, what we don't know is what's in the mind of our Governor Phil Murphy with respect to September and students going back to school. What does your gut tell you? Are we going to be remote learning for a next school year or a part of a next school year, or going back into the classroom?
So here's my gut without, again, marrying myself, because I want to make sure we close schools responsibly. I want to reopen them responsibly with the same level of care, because these are our most precious assets, our kids. If I had to give you my gut right now, Harry, and I said I think yesterday, we're going to give folks guidance in the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks for educators, parents, kids, administrators. I want to have schools open. Now, what that looks like, too early to tell. But my bias is, particularly if we continue to make progress on the health metrics, I want to be open for business. I want to do it right. I'm probably, if you said to me, what am I most concerned about right now, it would be unwitting passing of the virus from an asymptomatic young person to a more at-risk educator or administrator. So trying to figure out how we lessen the risk of that happening is probably one of the biggest pieces of this. But my bias in my gut tells me right now I want to be open for school. It'll be different, but I'd like to be back open for business. We got the number one public education system in America. It's our crown jewel. I want us to be open for business, but we got to do it right, and we have to continue to make the progress we've made.
Governor, I have to squeeze this in because so many listeners right now, listeners of faith, they want to go back into their churches. They've been doing everything they can do distance, but I interviewed a phenomenal pastor in our marketplace, lead pastor of Fresh Start Church in our area, Pastor Tim Chambers, and he taught me something yesterday. He said, Harry, churches are no longer essential. Churches are quintessential. When can people?
I love that.
I do too. I wrote it. I took notes. I said the same thing. I said the same thing to him. I said, I love that. When will you allow people to go back to house of worships and pray? They want you to say yes. They want to disinfect. They want to bring people in with limited numbers, have social distancing. When can you say yes?
Yeah, I hope soon on that. So we've already allowed drive-through and drive-in services as of last week. We're going to make some announcements today, one of which addresses outdoor gatherings for faith and for other reasons. We're constantly, by the way, we always say communities of faith have more in common than not. I've never seen it more the case in this respect, because we're hearing from every faith that they want to get back open. I hope sooner than later. Again, it's inside. It's sedentary. Those are bad data points, but it's quintessential. I love that word. We're working with folks to get to yes. I just can't tell you when.
Final comment. I know it's time for you to go. I appreciate it, Governor. Governor Murphy is with us. I've enjoyed having your back, and I'm just wondering, as time goes on, we haven't become Michigan yet. There's a little bit with the gym and some other acts of civil disobedience, but we haven't become Michigan where it's out of control. Do you worry? Are you concerned that you can lose the support of New Jerseyans the longer you keep them shut in?
Yeah. Harry, I'll leave you with this. This is not and I've never viewed it this way, a popularity contest. So I don't really the protest per se of folks they have a right to protest. I don't begrudge that. I do begrudge a couple of things. One is congregating and possibly infecting each other and maybe their mom and dad or grandparents. And secondly, putting themselves at risk by doing something that we are avowedly of the opinion is a risky health step. So that does concern me. The protests per se don't concern me. I think this is how I think about it. If we continue to make the health care progress that we've made, and we've made an enormous. New Jerseyans have been overwhelmingly doing the right thing. We've got the best performance if you look at the flattening of the curve of any American state, and it's a huge tribute to every single person out there. If we continue that for a few more weeks, an overwhelming amount of the state is going to be open for business, and the rationale to protest will go away. We just got to continue to make progress. If we do, we'll continue to open, and God willing, we'll get back to some kind of a new normal, and we'll look back on this and say no state, not surprisingly, but no state performed like New Jersey.
Governor Phil Murphy, I just want to say in closing, I really appreciate and respect the rapport that you and I have been able to establish.
Same here, Harry. I really love coming on. Let's keep doing this.
Thank you, Governor. Be well. Stay safe.
Take care, sir.
Stay healthy.
You too.
Thank you, sir.
Happy Memorial Day to everybody, and God bless our veterans.
Thank you, Governor.